discovering a new tool. So hello everyone, people coming from WeWeb or people coming from my own channel. I hope everything is okay for you. Today this will be an English stream. Sorry for my French community. I need to replace the French tag. Yes, I will do that for sure because today it's English. So because I'm not alone, I'm here with Mariano and Emanuele, which are from Italy, right?
Yes.
So no French.
No, just a bit in primary school. I can sing Frère Jacques if you want.
Oh, I think we may want that at the end. My tailor is rich, exactly. So today is a special live we are doing for WeWeb. So as a reminder, WeWeb is the company I'm working for. It's a no-code platform. And today we are here to talk about more the code of the no-code, like it's kind of inception stuff. So basically what we want to do today is develop a component for WeWeb, because this is something our tool lets you do. And here we have two persons who have starting to do that, like one of the first to do that external from WeWeb, so people who are not working for WeWeb, but who have done a really, really cool component to integrate Stripe. So this is why they are here. And this is what we will talk about today. So we will talk about a bit about WeWeb development in general. Then they will explain to you what's going on Stripe, what are the different steps needed to integrate a Stripe payment on a web page, not in WeWeb, but in general. And then we will focus on developing it in live to see normally that it's easy to be done.
It is.
It's easy. And so to let you know, we'll start by some presentation. So my name is Aurélie. I'm working as a head of front at WeWeb, and I let the two of you introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Mariano. I work as low-code and no-code developer for Serafini Studio, which is a small two-person team developing applications with no-code tools, and it's me and my brother Emanuele.
We are in the same room, so hello everyone. I'm Emanuele, and we started a couple of years ago Serafini Studio. Can you hear me?
Yeah?
Yes. Okay. So happy to be there, and I hope you enjoy this stream.
Yes, so I will just quickly go to show you my screen. Here we go. And normally you have everything. You can see one of my super cool test websites I'm using in production. So maybe some of you will recognize what it is. If somebody on the chat know where it's coming from, you have bonus points. So.
I have to. I don't know actually.
I will let the chat have a chance to say if they know it or not, and after that I will solve the mystery. But people who know me may know what it is. But what I want to show you is step by step what you have to do to start developing a WeWeb component. And because I don't want to cheat, I will show you all the steps. So you will see it's not that complicated. So basically, when you are developing a WeWeb component, you need to have the editor, so the WeWeb editor in a special version, which is what we call the dev version. It's due to the fact that you will live code the component. So you will need some special feature of Vue.js, and these features are not existing in a production application. And our application, like all the editor of WeWeb, is a Vue application in production. And so we have to go to this special dev version. So you are able to have your component served locally and used inside your editor, like you will normally do when you are developing a component locally for any normal Vue project. To do that, you have this special dev icon here, which is your next best friend for the coming minutes. And over there, you will see that there is here a link to open the dev editor. There is also something new, which I will push because probably, Mariano, you have not seen it because it's pretty new. It's a way to display more information for developer. When you toggle this, you will be able to see more like all the UEID and stuff like that, which may be here. You see you have more information, which is basically just easier for people who are making development. You also have
Is the UID under the variables?
Yes, so now it's easier to access it. You don't have to use a trick anymore to access all this ID. And you also have the possibility to drag and drop components directly from source code. But basically what we probably want to do right now, because we are developing a component, is to open the editor in dev mode. So here we go. So it's basically looking like the same. Just be aware that when you are in a developing mode, a lot of stuff are turned off to be sure you are not breaking your application in production. So all your change will not be saved. There is not this magical WebSocket saving your stuff. So if you need to be in a specific environment to test and develop your component, be sure to do that in the production version so it's saved. And then go to the dev mode when your change will not be saved. This is something can be useful to know. And here, if we open the dev tab again, you will see much more option. Especially here's the option to load a component, but we will go back to that just after. And you also have two very important links. It's a link to the documentation and a link to our repositories, because all WeWeb component, like the text, the image, videos, dropdown, all the stuff you are used to use. I hate this expression in English. It's not looking well. Used to use. Joyce, please give me a way to say it correctly in English. It's complicated, but so all our components are open sourced. So if you are searching for an example about how to do something, you can directly go to our repositories, which is sometimes useful because the documentation, we try to keep it updated. But for some advanced use case, it might be easier to directly take a look at our code base to see how we have done much more complicated stuff. It's also something we may change. Sometimes we do something in one way, and then because we develop a lot of components, we add more option or more feature available, so it's easier for next time. So don't hesitate to take a look at that. There are normally good examples about how to do stuff in WeWeb.
I second that because I use this feature a lot. I check your own code quite a lot when I tried my first test with the Stripe integration. So it's extremely useful to see how you actually doing your magic inside.
And now people will discover this is not that much magic.
Yeah.
Like our components normally are pretty small, except for one or two which are much more complex. But because we are developing normal Vue component, as we will see, everything which is existing in the Vue community and environment can be used inside WeWeb. So for example, right now we are developing a calendar or some date picker stuff. We can just go through all the web and find if somebody have a cool open source library, and we just do the wrapper around it so it's exposed in WeWeb. It can be challenging sometimes for stuff like sliders or everything which is touching the DOM or stuff like that. But this is also one of the strengths of WeWeb, is being able to integrate everything which is already working on a Vue environment. There is no black magic going on. It's a normal Vue application.
Yeah.
So if you go on the dev documentation here, you will see that there is a npm template. So starting to dev a WeWeb component, it's just running this script. I have already done it. Promise, I have not cheated, but it's just I have to do the npm install, and I do not want to do it during live because sometimes it can take a lot of time. But trust me, this will create this structure here, and I will explain to you in a few words how it works. So you will create something like that, and basically, as I said, a WeWeb component is just a basic Vue component, which is looking like up. Closing everything. Hope the typo is enough so that everyone can see. And so it's so for people who are used to Vue, this probably be very familiar. But for people used to just web development, it's not also normally. It's straightforward. You have the HTML part, you have the JavaScript part, and you have the CSS part. And the only things which make it a WeWeb component is the fact that the props here are will be injected by WeWeb, and so you have special props to be accepted here. So somebody in the chat is asking if there is any recommendation about Node version. Yes, because internally what is going on, we can take a look at the here, so dev dependencies. Basically, your only dependence is here the WeWeb CLI. So the WeWeb CLI will be the one which will handle all the compilation of your component. So there is different moment when your code will be compiled, but internally right now we are using Webpack, and so all Webpack packages and Webpack itself require a certain Node version. This is why we are not supporting right now the latest version, which I think is not version 16.
18 is the latest.
Latest,
16,
yes, but
16 is the long time support.
Yes, so the 16 is normally the one you are using. I think we are only okay with 12 and 14. We may update that.
I use 16.
16 works.
Yes.
Okay, so you may have problem if you are going too recent, and you will probably have problem if you are going too old, like guys, version 10 is dead years ago.
Yes.
But here, this is the only restriction we have. We have encountered some problems for Mac users, which is not tied to Node version, but more about the build tools of Mac. So for people who are still fan of Mac, in iOS environments, the build tool is a bit of a nightmare to stay updated. Don't know in which platform everyone is running. I know you are on.
I'm using both Windows and Ubuntu, and they both my experience the Windows 10. Sorry, Windows 10 and Ubuntu, and both are working with Node 16 because I'm not running Node older than the long term. The long-term stable version. So yeah, I've tried with the 18, and then I said, okay, it's not working. Then I said, oh yeah, of course, Webpack. Yes, and then I downgraded to 16.
And then I've seen we are another question. Yes, Joyce, you're perfect. I have the best moderator in the chat is Joyce. So does WeWeb accept React components? And if so, how do you incorporate them? Yes and no. So basically, you have to know that WeWeb is a Vue application. So the editor itself, but also the published application is a Vue version. So it's always best if your code base is in Vue because you will not add another framework inside the page. But we know that some people already have existing React components, and normally React and Vue are both tiny, and you are able to upload on a web page only 1 or 2 React components without making the payload too heavy. So for a moment, we had a wrapper, which is basically a Vue component, which we're able to connect to React component. This have not been tested for a while. So the option exists. If this is something you want to try more, just send me a message and we will try to test if it's still working. We have stopped focusing on it because we don't have that much people asking us that. But the option exists and normally is working and we'll be able to make it work. So this is a possibility. And does React works on Mac? Basically, yes, Q, thanks to troll with me. But it's probably the same people which are using both. So.
I have to say, I was using React and it was quite nice and easy to use Vue for the components in the web. So it might be, it is a nice chance of trying Vue, an excuse to try Vue.
I've seen recently on the Twitter community that React seems to lost some of people now with all the new updates. So maybe have a look to Vue. But yes, we know that people already have existing library. We want to support to import React. But if you have the time to do, as Mariano said, normally take your React code and make it work in a Vue component. It's normally not that complicated. And this is the preferred way. I'm just having a look at Joy's face if I'm not telling something which is not marketing agreeing, but it's it's a dev live. I can do stuff. I just don't have to say never. This is what they have told me. We don't say never. So as I said, the only dependence here is WeWeb CLI, which will be the one which will compile all your components. It's possible to add more. I think we will see that, Mariano, because you may have used Stripe SDK on your side.
Yeah, not the Stripe yes, you use the Stripe SDK and you use like a loading wrapper of the Stripe because you can't load Stripe JS directly from your server for compliance with all the payment rules. But there is a nice Stripe project that is a wrapper with promises to load Stripe on demand from their own server. Yeah, that's the only dependency I added actually to the component.
Yeah, so this is exactly possible. We also have, like, for example, dependency for slides. We use an external library for that. Just be aware that it may have conflict if you have several components who wants to have the same dependencies. And here we are more going to the plugin stuff, but because for now it's not really to external people, will not talk more about it, but it will be for sure soon. But on our side, this is what we do. If we have like a bunch of different components, depending on the same dependencies, we tend to make it a plugin. And so, as I said, your normal component, which is this, just taking special props, I will explain to that later. And then the other file, which is WeWeb related, is this. So I will also teach you how to pronounce it, because this is a nightmare the first time you start developing WeWeb, how you pronounce this file. So we say woo-woo. I don't think if this is a correct in English. Woo-woo, which is easier than www to say. Yeah. But here we have a woo-woo config. Don't know if it's working in English or not, but here we are.
It config.
Config, just yeah, you config. Just read off of the suffix. So this is the woo-woo config, which is basically will explain to WeWeb what your component is doing. It's a bunch of properties you will be able to describe, and mainly you will describe how it's looking like inside the editor, like what will be the label, the icon, the menu available. And then you will be able also to describe all the properties your component is taking. So developing a WeWeb component, it's like developing a Vue component that you will expose to people in a no-code way. So all you, like the props you want to receive and the events you want to emit need to be described here. So they will be available in all the interface inside WeWeb editor. And basically what you will receive is what we call the content. And the content is just a black box, a sandbox more object who will contain whatever logic you want it to contain and use inside your component. And everything which is inside the content will be saved on our database. It's like a way to configure your component. So for example, here I have a component which have a text color property. So this will be available to text color, and I can use it. And because this is a property, this will appear on the side panel of WeWeb, and I will be able to change it. This will be saved in the database. And when this component is loaded in the published application, this will use the configuration I have done in the editor. And we support a bunch of options like handling for your responsive, handling for your bindings, and all the cool stuff you already seen in WeWeb. I see people over there. Yeah, we have a mix of WeWeb community and my own community. So. And just to show you how it works here, so basically I will just serve the component locally. It will start on 80 ports by default, but you can change that if you want to run several one. And here I will just go here, add a local element. I can give it a name, and now as you see, you can also use an existing component, which can be useful when you already have developed a component and you just want to use the existing version of one and start your editing from there, which is also something new, Mariano.
Yeah, I noticed more options, and I was like, "Oh, what's that now?"
This is especially because of the feedback we received from external developer. I can give it a name, and then you probably have to validate certificate because we are running everything through HTTPS, and so we need to validate the certificates. And then I can drag and drop here, and you see here I have my ARM custom component, and here I have appearing the text color properties I described in the config. And if I change it, everything is changing here because basically WeWeb is handling all the wrapping stuff over there. And with that, we can do a lot of things, which is my time now to give back all the explanation to Mariano. Maybe you can share your screen and I will switch it to your screen.
All right. Okay. Basically,
and here
what we are going to do is following my process when I developed this integration. And it was like I followed the Stripe documentation and tutorial for the custom payment flow with the payment element. And we started from that when we tried the first time WeWeb, because obviously payment is going to be one of the main points of every app. And of course, you can already do it with WeWeb calling APIs and going to a checkout page. But there's also this nice thing with Stripe elements to have your own UI elements in your page without redirecting the user to the Stripe hosted page. So we went to the tutorial, and then I went step by step from here to the WeWeb documentations, and like Aurélie said, the WeWeb GitHub components. And basically what we're doing is a first step is going to be something you set up on a server, which is like because you need to create a payment intent, which is how Stripe start the process of a payment, right? So you need to do this on your backend because you need a private key, and obviously you can't put it in just inside WeWeb, otherwise you're gonna make it public to everybody and it's not going to end well. In this case, I set it up just a quick serverless function on Cloudflare. So it's gonna be just an endpoint that we're going to call with an API call from the WeWeb. So in WeWeb, the API call will not have anything private, and all the private calls will be made from the backend. And then basically what we are doing after is, okay, so then after we create the payment element, we load Stripe.js in our component in WeWeb. Ooh, look at that. And then after loading Stripe.js, we need to initiate it. And to initiate Stripe, the Stripe client, we need the public, key, right? And the public key is meant to be shared in your front end. It's safe to share. So this is going to be like the first input data that we need in our own component, like public key of the end user of the component we're going to develop. Then after that, we initiate the Stripe elements, which is going to do a lot of magic for us, basically. At this point, we call our endpoint, call backend to ask for, it's called client secret. I don't know if you are already used to Stripe. Basically, the client secret will be in the response when you create the payment intent, all right? And the client secret plus your own public key makes you able to start the whole process from the front end. So this is going to be our second input data that we need in our own element. And then after this, we create the payment element, and this will create all the UI for the payment inside the web page. And then the last point will be to handle the submit action, all right? And at this point, you will, if you are successful, if the payment is successful, you are redirected to another page. So we need to also specify another, I'm gonna put this here, wait. Need another piece of information here. We create the payment element, and we specify a return URL, and this will be our third input data that we need for the component. You write the function to handle the submit action, and then either you are redirected to the successful page, or you're gonna have an error, and then the optional last action would be to show optional error. If something goes wrong, like your card was declined, you don't have enough funds on your card. So it is well explained in the Stripe docs, and basically I just went through this whole process. You just need to adjust, obviously the HTML will be in your Vue template, the server will be in your backend, and then you have to adjust some of the functions to work with Vue, but it's quite easy and nice to do so. Sorry. Just going back here to see your faces. I don't know if I can't hear anybody else. So I don't know. It feels like I'm alone on my screen.
I can do that and just stop sharing your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So if you're right, Aurélie, we're going to just see how to start loading Stripe in your component. All right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that on yours.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that if you.
Sure.
So basically, okay, we can string the.
So just to be sure that everyone is following. So here we are in a case when we want to go to a use case, which you can normally do in any normal website, and to be sure that we can do that in WeWeb. So when you have a Stripe payment, as Mariano said, we can do everything front end, but it's only a few options for Stripe, and everything which is ending payment, we need a backend part. And by choice, we have decided in WeWeb to never have to handle the backend. So you will have all the front end handled by WeWeb, and then you have to provide your own backend if you want to go to this very advanced payment options you have. But as you have said, there is a lot of other things existing here. We can do that. You have your function on Cloudflare. There is a lot of other way to have a serverless server, as we say nowadays. We can also talk about our friends from Xeno, which are also doing some cool stuff. But just be aware that in this use case, we have this backend which is not handled by WeWeb, but it's just because you don't want payment and private key of payments to be in the front end, which is something really important to say. And so here you will have just this exchange to have a key and to initiate the payment. And then in the front end, we will call this different API, take every information, display the payment form, and submit it to the backend again, basically.
Yeah, I mean, once you create the payment intent on your backend, because that's the only time where you need the private key from Stripe. And then with that, you return the client secret of the payment intent, which is secret but not shareable with the front end. So you return this client secret to the front end. And from that point on, you don't need the backend anymore. Everything then is handled by Stripe. So the only tricky part is just at the beginning when you need to load Stripe.js, because you can't load Stripe.js from your own server or from WeWeb server for laws about compliance and security with payments. There is this very nice package from Stripe.js.
Let me just share your screen to everybody. Here we are.
Yeah. Which is like a loading wrapper for Stripe.js, which is, as I said, the only dependency that we're going to install. And it's quite easy. You import it, and then you call this function load Stripe, which returns a promise. And with your public, you call it with your public key, which is, again, something that you can share safely on your front end. And then that's it. You have Stripe loaded in the same way you will load it with a script element with the source, the normal source you put in for Stripe. So the first thing we're going to do is to install Stripe.js. So I did what Aurélie just did before, right? This is the basic scaffolding of the component. Then we're just going to add npm install.
No, you are caps locked.
Yeah, sorry. Here you go. Let's see if copy pasting works. Here you go. We install it. Done. And now on our components, we need to find the place where to load it. So we are going to just basically put this import load stripe, this easy import here in our script tag in the component, right? And then at some point we need to load stripe with the public key. So we go back with WoW config. Am I pronouncing it correct?
This is if somebody have a better way to say it, just shorter than WW. Or WeWeb config is maybe cool.
Yeah. So okay. So we can just we're not going to need the text color property, and we actually, so before we do that, we're not going to need this anymore, and this anymore, and we're not going to need this style anymore.
Just a side note during that, have you seen that the style is scoped, which is something Vue is handling pretty well natively, fighting for my framework right now because I think React is not doing that, which is just using CSS modules inside. So it lets you be sure. Basically, it will add attributes to your HTML templates to be sure that your CSS is not leaking outside of your components. It's pretty cool, my opinion. And also be sure to do that because your component will be loaded in a you don't know in which context, and you don't want your component to leak CSS outside. And another note here, it's how WeWeb work internally is that he will wrap your component inside what we call a WeWeb element, which is handling all of the base option of an element like margin, padding, background color, and stuff like that. So please do not put any padding, margin, and all this stuff in your CSS because we prefer that the user who will use your component will still be able to change it. And for example, if you put if you put your padding in your CSS, they will not be able to remove it from the interface inside WeWeb, and this is not really cool as a user experience. So be careful about this. Take care that your component will be loaded in a much more complex state and will be manipulated by WeWeb for a lot of style. And this is also the same reason that you did to have a root element on the template.
Yeah, I think it's also more easy with WeWeb because you can actually use WeWeb components and containers inside your element. I mean, what's the point of handling the margins and paddings if you can actually reuse the UI inside WeWeb to let the user adjust them? So
I'm just comparing that to when you develop a component on a normal project. You have stuff you don't want to have on your component because of reusability, but here it's a bit more than usual because you also have the WeWeb editing on top of it.
Yeah. So okay, now sorry.
I'm checking the check.
Okay.
Is there any position to? Okay, I will talk about it later. I have seen your question when design. We will go back to it. No worries.
Oh, I didn't see the question. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
Just keep on your stripe on your stuff, and I will let you know when there is a question.
We clean the basics, the basic template that we had with the default scaffolding. Now we go to the WoW config, and we're going to just change this text color property to the public key. So we're gonna add the label for the WeWeb UI here, public key. And then we're gonna put type text, if I recall correctly. If I don't remember, I go back to the documentation on
somebody
WeWeb
takes the time to.
Yeah. documentation, go to API, and you go content property type, and you have like type string. Okay, I put it wrong. I put it text, and
no. Here you have the list. The property type is type of string, but you have a link on the documentation. Complete list of available type are available.
Oh
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the link directly. Just
sorry. Yeah, here.
And here we have different. So basically, when you give a type to a property, this will not ensure that this is not a way to type like a TypeScript way of typing your properties. It's just a way to ask WeWeb how to display it in the side panel. So you have a bunch of options here to handle the UX. And here, for example, if you want a text input appearing on the side panel, this will be a text. And if I remember correctly, this is...
I remembered it correctly. Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
you have it correct.
This one here. All right, so it's going to be type text, default value. We don't put anything for now. Okay, and then we are going to... Because at the beginning, you will not have, in the UI, because your component is going to work also in the edit mode of WeWeb. So at the beginning, this will just be empty, and then the end user of the component will just input the public key. So we're going to watch the property content dot, we call the public key, key. All right, and value, and then if we have
you high instead of you have public key.
Oh yeah, sorry. And then if we have a value, if we don't have a value, we return early. Otherwise, we are going to import stripe, but because it's async, I should probably better do something like that. Async and
so here, for people which are not comfortable with WeWeb view, sorry, it's just a basic way to declare a watcher, which is something you want to do. And you probably have putting that because you want an immediate on that, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put an immediate as well here. So basically, we're going to watch the content public key property, right? And as soon as it changes. So if we don't have the value, we do an early return of the function. Otherwise, we load stripe with the content public key.
Here, I advise you to directly text the value.
Say it again, sorry.
You can just use directly value from the.
Sorry, value. Yeah.
And just to be 100% sure, it can happen that your watch property is retriggered even if the property itself have not changed. Like, for example, a way to calculate it have changed, but the final result is the same. The watcher will not make the difference between that. So it can also be cool to be extra careful and just double check that the value is different from the previous value, and the previous value is the second argument of yes.
So it's not value
or it's, value equal old value.
Old value, yeah.
Should be cool.
And of course, so we await for the stripe to load and initialize at the same time. And we want to do this as soon as possible, because when you are in the editor, the first time you load the component, you will have just an empty string. Then the user will input the public key so you can initialize Stripe. Then in preview or in production, the public key will be already set up, so it's not going to change. So we need to add here a property like immediate true. So this function will be called immediately on the startup of the component, and it will work in preview when the value of the public key will not change. All right. Now we need to store somewhere the loaded Stripe object. So we put up data.
Yeah, advise you not to do that.
All right, nice. I'm doing this in the...
Yeah, I'm here to be the view expert over there. So,
right.
Because if you put something inside data, it's going to be reactive by default. This is how Vue is working. And how Vue is working internally to handle reactivity, it's had a proxy around every object is manipulating. So if you put something from an external library inside a data property, you may have problem because inside the library we'll have a new object wrapped by proxy. It can sometimes break something. And also you probably don't want to be reactive on Stripe. This is an external object. So what I advise you is to still store it inside this, so inside the object, but do not declare it as a data. So it will work. Okay. It's just, you will be sure it's not made reactive.
Just do this dot Stripe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I put it in data at the beginning because the long-term plan was to also use Connect, implement the Connect version of it. So you might have like, we might switch from one connected account to another one.
Yeah.
In that case, you need to initiate Stripe as well. So you just go and override the...
You probably don't want to react to a change of Stripe internally, like the object changing. So you don't want to put it in a reactive state. But you basically, here we are going to a Vue expert question. So in this way, when you are basically integrating a third-party library, it's best to have an object describing the state of your external library in a special object which is yours, and then use a different handler and event from the external library to make them synchronize, so you are sure you are not messing up the internal logic of the third parties. So here it will not change that much if you put it on the data. I think in this case, this will not break something, but it can in a lot of library which are handling DOM elements and stuff like that. So it's better like that. But it will work exactly the same way. You just skip the reactive part.
Okay. Also, after this, I'm going to change the element
This
on
your component.
Yes. All right. So if everything is correct, we are just going to have Stripe loaded here. So just to see if it's working in the editor, we're just going to
the best debugger of the world.
Say it again? Oh, sorry.
It's the best developer hack.
Yeah, I know it's dirty. Sorry.
I'm doing exactly the same, so no blaming.
Okay. Let's see if it works. npm run serve. Okay, just give it some time. Done.
Here you are.
So I'm in the developer editor now. Let's add the element.
You probably want a custom.
Custom type save. Okay. Let's try to put it here.
Which is basically displaying nothing, which is normal.
My element, public here. And then let's go to the console. I have my public key here. Let's see if it's working.
Here we are. We have something.
Here you go. Configure payment, so it's done. It's quite fast because obviously the loader, this loader here, we start loading Stripe.js straight away. So even if you don't call the load Stripe function,
It's already fetching the script.
Yeah, it's already fetching the scripts. So this is working, and then we can go back to. So we load the Stripe. And then we need to init the Stripe with public key, and we did that. And then we need to init Stripe elements. So checking on the documentation here, we loaded Stripe. We need to define the payment, where the payment element will be injected in the page. So Stripe is having a form with a div where it's injecting the payment element. So we can go back to our component. We have this div here, which can actually, where we can put form. And then here we just put payment and div with ID payment element, but because we are actually in
You are missing your
in
N.
view, we can just add a reference for this.
Yes,
right?
probably better.
Yeah, better, but I don't remember how is the reference.
Oh, you just put ref and name.
I remember the reference in
no problem. You just put
here.
ref and name. I'm here to be your view Bible.
Yeah, here you go, ref payment element, as I said here. So just payment.
Yeah, and you probably and you are missing your N after the T, before the T.
Payment and
yes,
yeah,
no problem.
The payment element. And then going back to the documentation, we define in the payment form. All right, we need to initialize Stripe.js. We did it. We need to fetch the payment intent, and we're going to do that in a minute. I'm going to do that so that I already prepared a global workflow for creating the payment intent and getting back the client secret. It's as easy as having a REST API request. In my case, I have just a single post call to an endpoint, and this will just create a payment intent for a charge of $10. And then this will just return the client secret. Then going to store the client secret in a variable in WeWeb. So I just created a client secret variable here, type text, nothing as default value. And then in my workflow, first action, I call the REST API call for posting to the endpoint. Then on second action,
and just put it in the variable. And yeah, basically, you will do that on a workflow on page, or will you have a button for that? Or?
So we can just decide if we want to do it on loading of the page or on a button. I think it
depending.
Yeah, I think we can just do it. So I have a text element here. We just add a button here. Here you go. And but I'm in the development editor, so it's not going to be saved. So
yes.
let's just go back to the normal editor.
So for people asking us, like sometimes it can be a pain in the ass to not have the save, but we are forced to do that because sometimes you will use components which are not existing yet in production or have using different options. And if you let you save stuff, you will just break your existing websites. This is why there is no save option here.
All right, so we just added this action on the button. Just let's test it, and it works, succeed. We should see here that the client secret returned the workflow returned a client secret here. So we have this here. Then we can finally initialize Stripe elements, which is just as easy as calling these
Yeah, so basically you are using the SDK of Stripe to handle all of the UX interface, right?
Yes. The first call will just initialize the Stripe element object, and then another function will initialize the payment element, because you have other type of elements that you can add to the pages, but obviously the payment element is the easiest one because it's just complete with all the UI elements you need to handle a payment, right? So this is we just need to call stripe.element, and then there's an optional appearance object that we will see after, and with your client secret. So we go back to our element, and now we need another piece of information here, input data. So will be just another text value to input to the component. So just copying this and calling it the client secret. We change the label for the WeWeb UI, client secret. It will be a type text and default value nothing. Let's save this.
You probably want to make it bindable, right?
Bindable, yes, forgot that. Yes.
It's as easy as putting the thing. I want it to
bindable
be bindable.
too, so we can actually put a dynamic value for it.
So here also an insight from WeWeb, we decided to not make all properties being bindable because for some of them it does not make sense. And also in your internal logic, as soon as you make something bindable, you need to be sure that you handle the fact that it can change even in the published website. And then it can be for any type you probably will receive. So you need to handle, like it will not break your components. This is basically why.
All right, so we're gonna add a method here. Methods, right? Yep. Already. And we're going to just call it init elements. All right. And this is going to be like this dot stripe dot elements, right? And we are going to pass as an option here just let me double check. Yes, click client secret. So it's going to be client secret. This dot it's going to be in the content.
In the content.
This dot content dot client secret. All right, just to be sure what can go wrong, we might not have the client secret yet. So if we don't have this dot content dot client secret, just let's go with an early return. Right, so if we have, what else can we miss? We can also miss stripe.
As a stripe, yes.
Yes. We can also miss this dot stripe. Okay, and that should be it.
And you don't have to pass the element. You want it
not yet the element because we are just initializing the elements, and then when we initialize the elements, we need the reference from the reference to the element. So we want to initialize this if as soon as
we have
as soon as we load Stripe, if we have already, because in production you probably will have just both at the same time. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So you might want to start this in different places. So, and also I think we might want to have an early return if we have elements already. I'm not sure. Let's see. Let's try to call this dot init elements here. So it will just do nothing if we don't have the client secret. So we want to add another watcher here for content dot client secret, and we are going to handle this just calling this dot init elements. All right. Then we need to, obviously, we have an object returning from this function, and we just to store
Need
it
to have it.
this elements. All right.
And I think here what you probably want, if we are going super safe, is to know this element is generated from which client secret, and do not re-init it if the client secret is the same.
Yeah, so we might just want to have.
But I think this will be handled by the fact that we are calling that from the watcher.
Well, I don't know if Stripe is checking this for us already, but we can also store, right, the client secret here, right? When we do.
Oh, you can just add the check on the watch, because the only two way you are going, if it's one or the other, have really changed.
Yeah. So like we did, you mean like we did here for.
Yes, exactly.
For Stripe only, yeah. And we also don't want to do this. Oh no, we're just already checking this. Yes.
Yeah, you are already checking all of that.
Yeah. Okay, so this will just be this. This.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Let's see if we have the elements here at this point. Okay. So what I'm doing here in the dev editor, I'm going to reload because I'm not sure that I got that the component was updated, because I didn't put it in the page, right? So just to be sure. This is the element.
Yes,
we
and you're probably
public key. So just to make this a bit quicker, I'm gonna add the public key as a default value for the element while we are developing, and then just remember to
remove it before publishing
remove it, and do not submit it to GitHub like I did. Okay, we want to have public key default value
here, and I think we cannot do the same for client secret because you have an expiration of time.
Yes, we can just have. Let's see the client secret here. Collection variables, client secret, need to run the workflow.
Well, you have it on your button, I think, if needed.
Oh, okay. I think it's here now, right? Client secret, here you go.
Yeah, you can just bind it.
Oh yeah, I can just bind. No, I was about to put it as a default value as well.
Oh yes, you can. It depending of how much time it needs it to be expired.
Oh, this something. Sometimes this happens.
Yeah,
like I have an error and I have two elements. It's as easy as closing this.
I will take a look at that.
And adding another. Here you go. So what we're doing is this here, right? And then we bind the client secret here. Just to make it work, we are going to...
Yes, you can just click on your button.
Click on the button and let's see in the console if we have it right.
And you seem to have it. Perfect.
Yes. Yay. Okay, now the next step is where we need to create the payment element, and we will need to use the reference. And you have elements create, you input the type payment element, and then you mount it with either the ID of the DOM element or the DOM element itself, so we can use the
ref stuff.
the reference. Okay, this is going to be just, we can now just put it here. We have this dot elements dot create. We're going to create a payment element. Comes payment, and then we're going to just payment dot amount, and we have this dot
De la refs. Yes, exactly. And then the name you have used.
Name that we use. I'm going to copy pasting it because I want to be sure it's the right spelling.
It's the same.
Okay, let's see if something, the magic is happening. All right.
So you just have to reload, redo your binding.
And then okay. Variables, client secret. Let's see. Ooh, not working. Easy.
And then if you have to click on your text to have.
Oh yeah, because I don't have the. Here you go. It is working.
And then you have it. Right.
And then I have it here. Okay. So now the only thing we miss is to submit the actual form. So we're going to need a button. And then the first time I did it, I just did it like this. I said, I'm going to need a button. I'm just going to use a button here, right? Have a button, say pay now, right? And then here you go, you have a pay now button here, totally unstyled, obviously. But then you reached out and told me that you can actually use WeWeb components inside your own element. Mm-hmm. This is well explained here in the documentation, which is just a different kind of property with a default value of is WoW object.
Yeah, this is the magic going behind. We wanted to make it easier for developer, but right now, when we expose stuff to people, we use this magic global object WoWlib. But the problem is your config is load before this object is existing. So we are still trying to find a way so you don't have to remember this magic name, but for now, this is the way to go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, easy to understand.
It's not complicated.
It's not complicated. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to be like a hidden property because there's nothing to show like in the editor UI, right? So we are adding a payment button here in our configuration. And we may pay button. It's hidden true. And default value is WoW object true, and the type is going to be
WoW
button. On GitHub, you can see all the other WoW elements.
Yeah, we try to prefix everything so we are sure we are not collisioning with somebody else's name.
Yeah.
So please do not use it.
Yeah. And then as the documentation says, you just use a WoW element and you bind it to the WeWeb element. So we just are going to add this here instead of this button. We're going to do element. And then it's going to be vbind. And this is going to be sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It's
content dot pay button. Okay. Let's see if we have it here.
I think this is happening when you have the problem of the auto reloading stuff.
I think this happens when you have your element throwing an error.
Probably yes.
And the reloading
then
stuff.
He had it 2 times in the dev.
Which is all right, because if you see it, you see straight away. You know straight away that you did something wrong.
You did something wrong.
Here we go, and
now
I have the button here already, which is nice. So it can be like a normal WeWeb button, and you can
you can
style
do
it. You can style it as how you want, all these things. And then here on my element, I'll just bind again client secret, run the button. Here we go, and we have our button here. Now what we are doing is just the submit. We're not going to style it now, the element. We handle the submit event. We're going to be just confirming the payment with the Stripe SDK. And we are going to need the return URL here, all right? So we are going to need another property here, which will be just another text. So I'm just copy pasting this and renaming it. So this is going to be return URL with a label return URL, type text, bind label, yes, because you might want to bind it if you want. See, I struggled a bit to find the right path of the pages.
What you want to be, how do you want the page to be communicate?
I don't know. In my test, I just copy pasted the editor address.
Yeah, because basically this will be something which will be complicated to make it work on the editor, because your code is running inside an iframe, and so this iframe have an URL. So it's depending about what your third-party libraries is doing, and probably not used to be loaded inside an iframe. So it will change the URL, but the URL of the iframe. So you will probably need to test the whole process on the published version.
Yes, probably, yeah. For my test, I just copy pasted the editor, and then in preview you just reload the editor, which is going to reload again the iframe with your app, and it goes. So for now, I think we can just do this. We go to the element, we bind the client secret, and we just put this for now as a returning URL. Okay. So we just need to handle the payment, and then you have this very nice shortcut here. In view, they like a lot. So we don't want to we want to prevent the normal submitting on the form, and we want to handle the submit by ourselves, and we're going to add this handle submit function in our methods.
And then we have the use case when we probably will add that on the button properties to be able to force the role of the button from outside.
Oh yeah. I mean,
to be a submit one.
Yeah.
But I think we will change WoW button so you can provide this directly here.
Yeah, because so we anyway, we are going to do this .stripe confirm payment. Let me double check it's the right confirm payment. And then we need to pass the elements and then confirm parameters.
No, you can just copy paste all of it, I think.
Yeah. I think I can just do
And
it
now
here.
no-code people are discovering that basically coder people are just people who are doing copy-paste stuff. Join us!
I mean, I have to say that the Stripe documentation is quite good, and it's not like a lot of other ways you are supposed to do this anyway. It's just a function to call. So, okay. But we need to change here this Stripe, and then we need this elements here.
You probably have to put elements.
Const elements equal this elements. So this is working here. And then the return URL, we can just do const return URL equal this dot content dot return URL. Okay, and this should work out. What can go wrong? We just want to be sure. We might want to return early if something not good happens, like we want to have Stripe first.
Yeah. Maybe what we can do is just do not display the form until it exists or something like that.
Yeah, you have different options. Obviously, you can add something. I tried a couple of versions here, like showing an icon spinning until you actually have Stripe here. But usually, I mean, it's going to be really fast to load the Stripe SDK. So you're going to have just a flashing spinner and you don't understand what's going on. But you might want to add another spinner here when you are mounting
loading the
elements. You can also add, if you check on the documentation, you can have for the payment element, you can attach a callback. Sorry, you can listen to events, and there's the ready event. So when you
can do something when it's working. Yeah, here we are going to, like, when you want to fine tune what's going on. I think maybe what we can do is go back to your final component after and see everything.
Yes. I try to. I'm not quite 100% happy of the way I'm handling it now, but I'm trying to find the right way. Right now, I'm just how do you say, disabling the payment button until everything is done. And I am sending an event to WeWeb to say the payment element is ready now, you can show it. So the end user can just use the event to show or not, the form.
Yes,
it's still
unloader or...
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, so I'm not 100%.
Basically, you can also add the internal variable having the state of the loading. So you will have is loading properties, which can be true and false, and you expose that as internal variables, and so people will be able to bind to that, and you don't have the use of an event anymore. Like you just use is this ready or not, for example, and because everything is reactive, this will work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going from just use only reactive properties, and it's gonna be just a consequence of the reactivity of everything. And then I went just use events, so you add workflows with events. But I was not 100% satisfied by things, so I need to go back and check.
It's thing you need to test and have other people than you testing your component, and then you will have an overview of what are the different use cases and if it's needed or not. But I know exactly the feeling. This is exactly happening when we develop WeWeb components, because you think it will work and then you always find somebody which want to use it in a different way and in a perfect valid use case, but one you didn't think about it before, because you can't think about everything.
Okay, so we need to check that we have Stripe now. Elements, and here the content of return URL. Just as a minimum check to prevent bad things to happen. Then what happened here, if the payment goes okay, you are redirected to the return URL, sorry. Or if otherwise, you're gonna have this error telling you what's happening basically. And there's a basic if else to for Bubble to
set what we want to do.
Yes.
And here we can add custom logic about it.
Yeah. So we're just going to use the default that Stripe is suggesting.
And then you need to have
but instead of sending the error message, we're gonna just show a text error here. So what I'm going to do is I'm adding another WeWeb element of type text.
I'm happy it's working that well to integrate that.
Yeah. So text.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then we just use another Google element here, and we bind it to the text. How did I call it? Error text. Okay, now we may want to add now a data, right, to show the error, and we might want to return error default value like that. Now, if we have an error here, we can just set this error. Sorry. Error equal error message, right? Or we just want to show a default error message otherwise, right? And then we can just bind
the text.
The text. I forgot how you show. How you bind the?
Yeah, I can give it to you.
Oh,
and explain it at the same time.
WeWeb, right? WeWeb.
Yes. So it's props. Oh, what do you want here? Oh, you want to display it only if there is an error.
Error.
So here, just an advice. If you do that, the problem is your component will not exist inside the DOM, but it's okay to exist on the property. So it will appear on the menu.
Oh, I can just add a class here. I can actually just do
it's just we have changed it because before when we were constructing the nav bar, the one you are using to select your elements, we were doing it going through the DOM, and so when you add a VIF, we will not find it on the navigator. But now we have changed stuff and we are going through data. So through data, as soon as it exists on the content, it will appear on the navbar. So you can put the VIF.
Or I can also just switch a class, which we're going to be hidden.
You can also use just VShow if needed. This is the main difference between VShow and VIF.
Okay, I didn't know Okay, so VShow.
Yeah, it will just have the display hidden if it's true.
Yeah, and then we put error here. It's a double bracket, is it?
It's a double bracket. Yeah, I know you're coming from React, so I know.
No, I get confused also because of other frameworks that are using like JS tags, and I actually started with that, like with other frameworks using template tags in JS. So I was more used to these things, right? So usually.
Yeah, it's for the template strings. Yes.
Yeah. So when I switch between React and Vue, I'm always how many brackets now?
It's a problem when you are switching every time. So here it's cool. Something I want to explain is that here you have a lot of way to do stuff, and each way have a different strengths and weakness. Don't know if this is the correct English expression, but here, for example, we used a text as the error, and so we could also ask the add a property if the user wants to change what will be the text, if he wants to put a custom message, for example. And doing that, you also force where will be the text inside your component. Another approach will be to have the error in internal variable and just let the user add a text whoever he wants, maybe outside of the component, and just binds to the text. This is also another way to do it. But sometimes you really want to be sure that this will be rendered on a certain place because of here, for example, your button, it's essential, it's here. But if you do that, just be sure if your element can be hidden, that you had, it's a common practice we try to have on our elements. Add a way so that in editor you can force the display of the button, so it's easier for people to modify it. Like for example here, you need to make an error happen so that the error message is displayed, and you cannot select it and have an overview of what it's looking like without shooting the error. So there is lots of ways in WeWeb to do that. Just have it in mind for people in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you are not even 100% sure this is going to show, because people can just select. I mean, I can go in the editor, right, and have. Oh, you go. We just said
0, 1.
Yeah, because we are updating, hot reloading the component while we are writing. Every time I hit save, it's reloading something.
But we need to. I will add it on our roadmap, I think, because we need to handle that.
I mean, I can actually go here, right? Find my element here,
and find your text,
and can actually just say that these.
Yeah, but you will not have an overview of what it's looking like. Oh yes.
Yeah. I mean, if I do if the user of my component will do this will not appear even when I have an error, right?
But like
so
he wants
just the only problem is the user will not have the a display of what's going on here. So
but
you could
example,
actually
if you want to display an icon or stuff like that, sometimes it's easier to have a drop zone. But drop zone, it's much more when you have a very complex component or a section and you really want to put special zone for that. But I think in your use case, it would be better to expose it as a variable. And so we can maybe like put it in a pop-up, for example.
Yeah. Or you might also want to add like an editor-only button here, like show error text.
Make it show,
for switch on and off, and then add like change then the condition here, error and on and off, and you just try to think another way of doing it.
So this is something also possible for people in the chat, because I know you know Mariano, but we can add properties which we mark as editor only, which are properties who will not be displayed inside who will not be stored inside WeWeb, and which are here just to add more interface on the side panel. And this can be useful in this example, for example, for the show error. So here, for example, probably on off.
On off, right?
And then you will put the editor only properties.
True. Right. So
and just be sure you will not take it from the content. So you will have to take the editor state props.
Okay. That's why last time I tried, it wasn't working then.
That can be a bit confusing because you are declaring it in something different, but yes, you can just copy paste that.
You mean from here?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And you have something which is called side panel content inside it.
Okay.
I may need to work. You have to edit on the props.
Yeah. On the props. Yeah.
And here we see something we have not seen before. Also for people in the chat, you see that there is special comments, which is a way how WeWeb is handling stripping. So if you have some part of the code which are needed only inside the editor, so for just here for the UX of edition, you can strip the code, so the version you will have on the publish app will not have this part. So for example, here, these props, because it's doing in the editor, we need to strip it because we will not receive it in the published application. This is something which is existing only on the editor environment.
Okay. So it's going to be, I think I'm going to add a computed value here.
Yeah, probably.
Show.
I think the best is probably just to put error message.
Oh, yes.
Something like that. And make do me lorem ipsum message when. So basically, your computed will be something like.
I wanted just to just use a Boolean, calculate a Boolean here. If you have an error,
you will also need a default value for the message to be displayed. So I think it's easier if you just do that. But as we said, we are in the wonderful world of development. Everything is true and possible. So
we can just
do whatever you think it's the best. But
oh no, my first thing in mind was I am already setting the error text here, right? And by the way, I need to reset this at the beginning, right, of the handles of the like this dot error equal empty string.
Yes, so basically here we put something which is like error message, and who will return something different in the published app or in the editor. And in the editor, if this is if as a editor state.
Yeah, I get what you mean now. Yeah. So error message going to return this dot.
So here we are.
I'm gonna do let message equal this dot error, right? And then I can add this the comment here and say
exactly.
If
this dot
dot we call
it's side panel. No, it's side panel content and then the name of your product.
Okay, side panel content and then show error.
Yes, then you will probably do message equal
default error.
Yeah, probably putting a lorem ipsum or something like that. And then you, but so not really matter here. Just here to
and then I've got this here, and then we return the message.
Exactly.
And then we just go for.
And then you change the vshow to error message.
And I change here to error message.
Exactly.
Let's see how it is. Okay, we have this. Okay.
You forget this before.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No problem. Not here. Here
I'm not. Yeah, so I'm not used to all this Here we
Here
go.
and
Yes.
And if we go, normally you will see it working now. I think you don't need to reload it, but...
Okay. So it should be here.
Yep, and then you have your toggle. And it's working. Yeah, see, we see your text now.
Yep.
But it's we do not pass the text to it. This is why we have done something wrong. If we go back to the template, then error message is not
yeah, because it might be a
props.
property in the WWL.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
It's a WW props property.
Props.
Yes, equal. And then you have to pass an object. And the key is text. Right? Yes, and the value is your things. And you need to put 2 points before WeWeb props.
All right.
And then we are good. Yep, better like that.
Okay, let's see.
And we have the double stuff now. Not this time.
No, not the double this time. Okay, so if we go here, something like happened. Okay, off.
Yeah,
but here it's showing up as a default.
You probably have to put a v-if instead of the v-show.
V-if here.
Yeah, because we have the display which is doing.
Okay. Let's see, for example, like putting a bad card. Client secret, return URL, we put it here. Let's see a Stripe test card. Something with an error, declined. Oops, reload. Okay, so let's add component again. We bind the client secret. Put the return URL. We load the element and we put a bad card here. And we pay. It's not working now. It was working before, right?
You need to have the buttons to be a submit button so it works.
Oh yeah, forgot. Yeah, because I was forcing that on the
component. Maybe what we can, just change it or just press enter when you have. Yeah, you need to be in edit here. Yeah, submit button. And now it's not a good.
And now I have a connection error. This is probably the connection of the office here.
But you need to redo everything. I think it's maybe better if we just go to your working component.
Yes, which is here. This one. Pages. Yeah, the end version of the component, you also handle the appearance.
Yeah, maybe API we can take a look at your source code.
Yeah. So just. Here you go. This is in Italian, sorry. Your card was declined. Let's try in English. Your card was declined. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I think what I added was not a lot more than this. It was just playing with the WoWo config, like trying to add some events triggering from the element to have.
So basically, for people who know how WeWeb works, this is a way to expose workflow triggers. So everything you describe here will appear as an option to bind workflows on your element.
Yeah. So as I said, I was playing with a ready element ready event, loading start event when you start to click the payment button, and a loading end event in the case you have an error and the button is not loading anymore, and then a general error event. And then I added, obviously you need a public key and a live public key and a test public key. And this is, I think, one of the interesting that you can do with these comments here.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of using directly the key from the content, I'm using a computed pub key. All right, and then I return the live key of the test key depending on this other computed property, which for convenience I called it is live, which is just, where is it? Is editor, is preview. Where is it? Is live. Here
we are.
I just put it in the data because this is not going to change, right? You're not going to do use the component between live and the editor at the same time. So you can safely put it in the data, and you just add a live true, you assume is live, and then you add the components, the comments here to set live false, and this will be stripped from the production, right? So at the end in production will just be live true, and then in the editor live false.
Which is basically a good way to do it, but I think maybe we can probably think about it and expose something, so it's easier for you to have it like it's.
I mean, probably in the same way you expose the mode, right? You already expose.
It's different because this is something you can have on the build. So we can even put it in a non-environment variable, and you will have it. Which is also cool. And then we have something asking. Here, I've seen it's like that. Yes. Yes, I will just. I will review the question because you are sharing your screen, and we have like. If you
let's stop.
Let's stop it. So can we already use your component from GitHub in our project? This is something.
The component is open source in GitHub, and the link is. Can I text the link here?
You can probably put it on the chat, or if not, give it to me on the private chat, or me and Joyce will be able to push it on. Here we are. I will give it to you on the chat, so you can take a look.
It's still missing the connect implementation, just the Stripe Connect to use, for connected accounts. As I was just thinking about what's the right way of handling it, because like in a normal way, you just have your component right in production, and you don't switch between normal account or connected account, but in the editor, you will just switch between that at the beginning. Like when you load the component in the editor the first time, and you have no public key, not connected account ID, then you add your public key. So it's going to be, I will just think, okay, this is going to be a payment for this account. Then you add the connected account ID, which will be probably a binded value. And then you are, okay, so now let's stop that, reload Stripe with, reinitialize Stripe with the connected account. So I was just starting to think about which is the right way of doing it. And so that's the missing piece of it. But you've got the full appearance.
The basic.
Yeah, the full appearance of the keys. And it's nice because you have options to, you can use select inputs for the inputs you need for the component in the UI of WeWeb. Sorry for the wording.
So yes, take a look at the source code. I don't know who is asking the question. Is it a dev or a not dev person? This is maybe a non-dev one.
Yeah, I mean the component is on GitHub. You can fork it and then. What's that?
I can try to translate that in English, but
what does it mean?
Bidouillard. I'm trying to find
okay.
Yeah,
like
you have
builder.
It's builder, like, yeah, it's much more like I can do stuff because I'm trying, but I'm not like.
You need to try.
Guys, you need to help me right now. I don't have the English word for that.
Google Translate. Manuele says Google Translate say hacker.
Yeah, there is no English for this. It's basically somebody who can fix stuff even if it's not his job.
I like that.
Bidouiller is like I do stuff and
okay.
it's working. Maybe it's not the state of the art, but it's working.
Yes.
Basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's more like that.
Yeah. Yes, I like this attitude. Yes.
So it's a good thing. So you can take, it's a good translation. You can take a look at the source code and maybe try to bidouille something.
Yeah, or you can just fork it, import it in WeWeb and use it straight away.
Or start to be a real open source one and have pull requests and stuff like that. We don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm not sure I will respond to
it's a lot of work for you, so maybe better to fork it.
But I put it on GitHub because I saw all your components on GitHub, so I thought it is nice to share. I'm fiddling with WeWeb, and it's nice to share.
Yeah, we have planned to open a marketplace some days, so that people like you who are doing things can make it a job. But
I think the verb for that in English, it might be to fiddle. I'm not quite sure, but I had an English friend who was using this verb in a similar way.
I don't know if this is official French also.
Yeah.
Fiddling, that works, right? Yeah. And so we are also asked, will it be in the official WeWeb component some days? So maybe not this one, but Stripe is definitely an integration we want to be put officially on WeWeb, and we are working on it. But as you have seen, even if you can make it work, it's still a lot of thinking about all the user experience you want to expose inside the component, and this is why it's not yet published officially on WeWeb. It's not because we don't know how to do it. It's because we have to think about the best way to expose it. So it's a lot of UX research about it. And also we have to think about the fact that here it's depending on a backend. So Stripe has a solution fully front-end, but with limitation. So we will also try to have that one for people who don't want to have a backend. But then for the backend solution, we still have to figuring out if we want to use external backend or do we want to provide our own backend or stuff like that. So this is why it's still not available in WeWeb, because it's a lot of work.
I think what I did, it was like a kind of stress test for me and WeWeb. Like, can I just start using WeWeb and go straight away to implement Stripe elements? And I have to say it worked quite, it was more easy than what I thought. And I was pleased by the fact that you can actually add a lot of things. And then I was more more pleased when I saw that, you can actually add WeWeb components inside it. So it saves you a lot of time to expose like an API to the end, properties for the end user to style the button or something, and then you do it in WeWeb.
Because we are doing exactly what you are doing every day. So this is very selfish. We just develop stuff which are working for us. And then we are pleased to give it to everybody else. But we are really happy to have it here, tested by other people. It's also a great way for us to have feedback about what we are doing, because this is something we really want to push in WeWeb, the fact that the no code is not like something different from coding, and that you can both have coder and no coder working together. And I think this is one of the big strengths of WeWeb, is being able to use a no-code platform, but as soon as you have something which is really like a bit more touchy and probably not really possible in no code, you can go back to code and expose it to other people. And so like you are a developer, so you can do it by yourself. But if we are thinking about somebody else, it can also just have a freelance for a few days to make this component especially working, and still are being able to handle all the other stuff in the application themselves, and be also able to tweak the component, like exposing properties properly, and then you can still make it work in a no-code way. And yes, this is, I think, something pretty cool. You will never be blocked in WeWeb. You can always go back to code if really, really needed. Even if we try as much as possible that you can do everything from a no-code interface. But yep, I don't know if there is more question in the chat. I have my boat doing a lot of yes, you're right to ask again, Moon Design. Any chance you could share what feature you are working on? Oh my god, I think this is the time I can push Joyce on camera. Joyce, are you ready or not? Can I push you? Yes.
Yeah, my hair is obviously, it's perfect to be live now. Okay, actually the features
I think you can maybe share your screen with
I'll share the public roadmap. I can share the screen as well, but I'm on one screen, so I'll have
I can do that as soon as. Can you send it on a private chat, because on the normal chat I cannot take links.
Sure. So the big one's coming up. The one that Aurélie is working on the most is the table element, the grid
which
table.
Is the best name is data grid.
Data grid. Yeah. Which will basically make it much easier for you to add a table that is already like ready for your CRUD. So you have less stuff to do manually. And the other big thing that's coming up is a single page application. And I think maybe Aurélie would be best to talk about that. But the idea is your web apps will be way faster and it will be awesome.
Yeah. So basically, for historical reason, right now, because WeWeb at first was aimed to be more like a Webflow, like static website builder, and then we have changed everything, listening to feedback from user, and now it's much more oriented around web application development. And when you are doing a static website, something really important is SEO and stuff like that. So we were having one page generate per page, so it will be better for SEO. But right now, because everybody now using WeWeb are much more into a web application, we want to go to a SPA, so a single page application. So it means that you will not, each time you will change pages, you will not lose all the context. You will be able to pass data from page to page all things like it will open a lot of new feature going to a single page application. And there is another question for me, right? Is there any plan for dealing with position of truth? Yes, so basically we have it removed because this were causing too much issue in the display. And then we had the modal section component, which is handling well for all pop-up and stuff like that. And I don't know if this is in the roadmap. You can. Is there a feature somebody can vote on it, Joyce?
No, it's not on the immediate roadmap. So we are aware of it. It's in the backlog, but it's not planned and it's not currently under review.
So it's really depending on your use case. I think for most of the use case, the modal section component is the best way to go, because it's working to put something on top of something else. If it's for a design issue, like just changing a bit and have this nice effect, maybe go with custom CSS for now. I don't know if this is answering the question or not. And so other... Yes, for now, it's something we still have. So static page option. Static page is different from server-side rendering. So yes, we want to keep a server-side rendering option, but we will probably move to generate all your pages to just generate the pages who matters. But it's a lot of change internally in the architecture, and especially when you talk about web applications, there is several stuff. There is what we call SSG, so server-side generation, and SSR, server-side rendering, which is two different ways to do stuff. One is you generate ahead all your pages, and so it's like you make your server generate all the page. And with SSR, it's much more, each time somebody is asking, you first create the page on server side, then put it on the front end. And so it's still handling well SEO. And the difference is when you are fetching the data to build the page. And so this is currently a very hot topic in the web development sphere, like not just WeWeb, it's just a fully discussion in the web, all this side, like everything was on servers, then everything was on front end, and now we are in an area when you want both words, and it's starting to be much more complicated for all of us web developer. So it's still something we need to think about, and will probably require a bit more time, but will also open a lot of feature, like basically just rebuilding a page and not your entire website and stuff like that. So it's work in progress.
And we'll take one last question from Quentin, who's asking if automation tools like Integromat will be available as plugins, integrations in the future. It's not something that we have. It's not something that's coming like 1 or 2 months. It might be possible in the future, but I would be very curious to know what is your use case, like what kind of thing you would want to do with Make that you can't do currently with WeWeb.
Here I will give my dev opinion of what I think WeWeb is good, is the fact that we have chosen in WeWeb to focus on what we can do the best, which is building your front end. And then we want to rely on all existing services which are doing things well to handle all the other stuff like the backend. And for example, when you talk about Integromat, which is, if I remember correctly, a way to automate workflow in your backend, then I think it's best that WeWeb will never handle that, but you will go in Integromat, go all your automation flow, and then you will have the probably an API point you can call to have a webhook on Integromat, and then what you will do in WeWeb is just call this API point. And I think it's maybe I'm not.
Which you can already do, right?
Yes, you can already do that. Yeah. And it's not 100%. I'm not 100% sure objective, but I think it's a smart choice that WeWeb have done here, is that you can't do everything, and there is a lot of tools who can do a lot of good stuff. And the best things we can do is make it possible to connect to all of this stuff.
Yeah, and we have Fred saying, as a bidouilleur, he confirms that he loves the fact WeWeb is only for front end.
Yeah, because you have a lot of stuff already existing and doing things well. So there is no need to try to make it like, try to do everything and so do everything not in 100% perfect. So this is the current way. But what is maybe appearing is maybe soon you will see in WeWeb an interface which is looking like much more Integromat for all workflows. That is something coming. So, woo, spoilers. This is my next task. This is why I know.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Mariano, Emanuele, and Aurélie, of course. As a non-developer, it was actually super interesting. I think with Quentin, we both learned a lot. So thanks again. And hopefully for the developers out there, it was also very helpful. I'm sure it was.
Yep. It will be available on my Twitch and I think on YouTube as a VOD.
Yeah, on the WeWeb channel as well.
Yep. So... And in the meantime, if you have any question, you can go on the community forum. Which I think it's the best way to ask question and exchange with other people. And we are not hearing you. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank you because I can't write in the chat, so thank you for thanking me. thank you for having us here, and it was nice to stream for you. It was our first streaming about this, and then like you said, the community. If you come to the developer corner,
yeah.
So
for
it's
now,
not only me there.
Yes, you will see Mariano explaining everything he have done for the Stripe.
Yeah, but come and for something else. I feel lonely.
And Mariano, I don't know if you saw, but during the live, Quentin said he would love a crisp integration. So just a hint if you.
Yeah, we were wondering what is it. I don't know what crisp is. I understood it's a kind of chat.
It's a kind of chat.
To see what's that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Talk to you soon, and thanks for being so supportive of each other. It's really cool to see you all build amazing things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
It was really, yes. Thank you, HTML5 PHP. Thank you for having us, and good weekend, I guess.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.